When it comes to the practice of martial arts and combatives, there are some questions we should ask. We should ask ourselves these questions, especially if we're doing things that include lethal force options. It's very important that we understand as exactly as we can the moral, legal, and ethical consequences of using the different kinds or different levels of force that we practice. And I wouldn't blame you if the first question you ask is, who the fuck is this guy and why should I listen to him? Well, I'll be honest, I'm just a person who's practiced and trained in martial arts for many, many years. But the reality is I'm just an opinionated old geezer who's done a lot of reading on the subjects that I talk about. And don't take my word for anything. Do your own research. Check into this for yourselves and find out what your local laws are when it comes to self-defense, what your local laws are when it comes to the use of tools and weapons and self-protection, and come to your own conclusions. However, if you like videos on this stuff and you want to hear somebody else's opinion, please continue watching and I'll share mine, and hopefully you'll get some enjoyment out of this video. If not, gain some information. Okay, the first thing I ask myself when it comes to this kind of training is, what situation would warrant me doing these actions? What do the use of force laws for private citizens in my country, my jurisdiction, my province, my community look like? What are the guidelines for using force in the country and culture that I live in? What is my morality about this? Where is this an ethical use of force? These are the initial questions that you should be asking yourself. And then you can get into things like, how realistic is this training? Is it something that I could pull off under pressure? And if I believe this kind of force would be something that I might have to use, how can I pressure test it and make sure that it is something that I will be successful with under pressure, or have a good chance to be successful with under pressure? What do I do to develop skills that work against another person who is fighting back? Now, you see in this video, I am using force enhancers quite a bit, from knives to pocket sticks to flashlights to my boondock pick. And I have to understand, or at least know, what that will look like for me if I use it and end up in court over the use of it. In Canada, we are guided by the ideal of proportional use of force that is reasonable to the situation. So if somebody has a knife and are attacking us, we would be within our rights to use a firearm. However, we can't carry a firearm for that purpose. In Canada, it is illegal to carry any concealed weapon. It is illegal to carry a weapon for dangerous purposes. It is illegal to carry a weapon that is dangerous to the public peace. So, if you have something in your pocket that is only capable of being used as a weapon and not a tool, you could find yourself in trouble just by having it on your person. Even if you were found to be using reasonable force in a situation, you could get in trouble for having a weapon that has no other purpose as a tool or something like in that manner, other than being a weapon. If you have plastic knuckles or carbon fiber knuckles, there's no other purpose for those to be in your pocket other than being a weapon. So if you used them in a situation where it was found to be reasonable to use that kind of force, you might be in trouble. So this is why it's important to understand the laws in your area, to ask questions, to do research. Ask yourself also, if you're training 90% for the worst case scenario of violence, and statistically, most violence is social violence between us and people that we know, are you really preparing for what you might have to do or what you're more likely to face? This is where arts like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and even Japanese Jiu-Jitsu and other stand-up grappling systems have such a important place in our self-defense training, because those arts teach us how to be able to manipulate a drunk uncle, a drunk friend, or just someone that it is unreasonable to smash the fuck out of them. It is unreasonable to go to extreme measures with them, whereas it would be more reasonable to try to control them. Understanding these things are imperative, and the way we start is by asking ourselves questions. Asking ourselves very important questions, and then doing research to find the answers to these questions. The biggest reason I train is for personal enjoyment, and it gets me moving my body. But while I'm training, especially when I'm training knife combatives and these kinds of things, I do a lot of checking in with myself. When I was in school, who, what, where, when, why, and how were concepts that were just driven into our heads. These were the ways to find out answers. Question concepts were used to help us discover how to think for ourselves and find out what we need to know. And I apply that to my martial arts and my self-defense training. I think it's really important. Who can give me these skills? Where would I use them? How would I use them? When would I use them? And what might be the consequences of me using them? These are the kinds of questions I would start with. But please keep in mind, I'm just an old geezer who's loved martial arts and training for a long time. Don't take my word for it. Do your own research and come to your own conclusions. And if you like this kind of content, please support my Patreon. Thank you.